This is the time of year where bills got to move fast through committee, and sometimes our bills die quick deaths. And I remember one of the first things that I was told when I got here is don't fall in love with your bills. And it's a good thing to keep in mind, because this is a process, and like we like to say, the Commonwealth has been around for over 400 years, and it'll probably survive another year without your bill, and I can appreciate that. What I don't quite understand, though, Mr. Speaker, is why in a subcommittee, two bills, which essentially had nothing to do with one another. They were not bills that you could have incorporated into one another effectively without getting a challenge from our esteemed colleague, Delegate Orrock, on germaneness or single issue. And yet, they were brought together for the purpose of testimony. And this obviously confused a lot of people that had arrived to testify, both in person and online. But the part that I had the biggest problem with is that a mother who had driven 2.5 hours to be able to share her story, and for which I made my comments very brief in order to allow her for more time, didn't get the chance to share what she would have liked to. And the bill she was therefore not passing, the only thing I can really do for her at this point is read it right now. So, the body will indulge me. I am Michelle Blair, Sage's mom, otherwise known as Nana, because she is also my granddaughter. I adopted Sage after my son passed in 2007. By the time I was able to bring Sage home, she had spent more than a year in 6 different foster homes. She had a lot of trauma to recover from, but what she went through as a young girl was far, far worse. No child should ever have to go through the horrific ordeal Sage did. And I'm glad you have the opportunity to change the policies that led to it, and you have the moral obligation to ensure that no other child suffers as she did. I have heard so many other families across the country who have lived similar experiences: Democrats, progressives, Republicans, religious, non-religious, LGBTQ. It doesn't matter. We are all in the same boat. We are parents who love our kids and want them to be safe. Please listen to me, not as politicians, but as fellow parents. Sage started high school at 14 and decided to say she was a boy, but didn't tell us, her parents, even though we had supported her gender nonconforming style. Like most kids who identify as trans, she struggled with mental health issues, which had hit hard during puberty and COVID. She'd been hospitalized that summer and was still being treated, and she was fragile. I told the school all of this, but they left me completely in the dark and immediately affirmed her using a male name, male pronouns, and telling her, a tiny girl, to use the boys' bathroom, even giving her transgender website she could secretly access on her school computer. And they never told me. Less than 2 weeks after school started, she was assaulted in the boys' bathroom. She was being severely bullied with shoving, harassing, and threats of violence, rape, and death. I am a volunteer at CASA, a court-appointed special advocate for children. I am trained in how to support children experiencing trauma and mental health issues. Had I known what was going on at Sage's school, I would have had a chance to step in, but by keeping such critical secrets from me, they robbed me of the opportunity to protect my beautiful child. Sage herself told me about the assault 2 days later. We tearfully sat on the floor together, and I said we'd figure it out, but it was like something had broken. And in that night, terrified of the bullies, threats to her and us, she ran away, right into the hands of a sick predator who drove her to D.C., where she was taken by sex traffickers to Maryland. She was drugged and raped over and over until the FBI found her in Baltimore 8 days later and called us late that night to come and get her. Early the next morning, we arrived to bring her home with our back seat full of her stuffed animals and blankets, but we were turned away and sent before a judge, and we had no idea why. When we entered the courtroom, Sage wasn't even there. She was on a screen remotely from a prison cell, looking tiny and broken. I cried out, "I love you, baby." And she said, "I love you, Nana." And then an attorney interrupted and accused me of abusing Sage in connection with misgendering, which was terribly ironic since the school had hidden from us her claim to be trans to begin with. The judge kept her from us on these false charges for more than 2 months, first in prison despite no criminal charges, and then housed in the male quarters of a state home where she was assaulted again. Who in their right mind puts a traumatized young victim of horrific sexual abuse with teenage boys? And they refused her trauma care. I couldn't breathe. Sage told me later the attorney had told her to lie about being abused by us so she could make a legal case go all the way to the Supreme Court. And that attorney also lied to my precious child that I didn't want her anymore and that she would find her a Maryland foster home. Sage didn't even know we had been right outside the first day for hours waiting to bring her home. I wrote so many letters to Sage at the state home telling her I loved her, and none of them ever reached her. Sage ran away from the state home, lured by an online predator to Texas. She disappeared this time for months, drugged, beaten, locked up, raped, and sexually exploited until the U.S. Marshals finally found her. I took the next flight there, and Texas gave me my daughter back right away. She now has a lifetime of healing ahead with neurological damage and a permanent diagnosis of complex PTSD, all because the Appomattox School District decided to keep this mother in the dark. Keeping parents in the dark has created a huge market for predators on the internet. This is a subject nobody wants to talk about until it happens to your child. Kids aren't being thrown out by parents. They're being lured by predators online. Human trafficking is very real in Virginia with major routes along 81, 64, and 29. It's a miracle my Sage was even found. 1 of 4 girls and 1 of 6 boys will be sexually abused before they are 18, and once they are in state care, the risk of abuse skyrockets. Today, Sage looks back and tells me she doesn't know who she was then, that she was never a boy, she just wanted to fit in, and yet every authority jumped on gender and made life-changing, disastrous choices for her that I was powerless to stop. They had no right to keep my daughter from me, especially at a time when she needed me the most. So that is why we need Sage's Law. It's as basic as it gets. Parents need to know what is going on with their own children at school, and school and parents have the right to raise their own children because they know and love them more than any teacher, counselor, or judge ever would. Families all over the country have told me of similar stories torn about by gender ideology. It is past time for the destruction to stop. You can't fix what happened to Sage, but you can protect others. It's why she had the courage to share her story. It's now your turn to show a fraction of that courage and pass Sage's Law. I understand that we have differences with respect to what is the best policy to address something like this. The bill will come back. I guarantee you, Ms. Blair will come back. And I sincerely hope next time you hear the testimony from her, because I promise you I can't do it justice, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.